everyone. Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Really excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. And today, excited to have Juan on with us. And Juan is one of our students that we just recently worked with for the summer 2025 recruiting process. He's currently finishing up his sophomore year, and he's actually, been working with us for just a little over 3 months because I think he joined back in late January. So it was a very quick process for him from start to finish, which is always great. Like we try to get our clients their offers as quickly as possible, but wanted to get him on here to talk to you guys about just kind of his recruiting experience and kind of how he was able to overcome all the obstacles along the way to get to where he is today with an offer that he's very happy with. So with that said, Juan, I want to kind of first of all thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. But if you can kind of kick things off for us by just introducing yourself, telling our audience who you are, kind of what's your profile, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Awesome. Happy to be here, honestly. I guess in this type of situations, I'm just gonna go deep in terms of like the timeline, where I grew up and what I did growing up and my hobbies and like where I study and everything. So essentially, I'm a sophomore at Boston College. I'm majoring in finance and accounting. I was born in Florida actually, but I grew up in Bogota, Colombia. I went to the same high school there. So I'm a huge Latino, biggest Colombian fan, biggest like promoter of my country ever. I grew up actually in a household of 7 siblings. So by nature of that, I feel that I had parents who worked full time and encouraged me from an early age to really like go out and earn my own buck and show that. So I was always the type of guy that I don't know, like for example, I created a candy store at school, bought wholesale, sold to my friends, attempted to create an Amazon FBA store where I lost all my savings and failed and lost and everything. And it's really through that I learned the niche of business and got interested in that. So fast forward to COVID, I basically created my an e-commerce store where I sold 80 grand worth of 25 models of anti-blue light glasses to 15 cities in Colombia. Amazing experience, learned a lot of business in that, like by nature. And super humbling in terms of, I don't know, like what requires to start something like that. So when I graduated high school, I kind of felt lost. You think initially you think that, I don't know, going and doing these type of things, you kind of gain perspective in terms of what you want to do in life. I was the opposite. I was completely lost in terms of what I liked. I liked a lot of stuff. I started to like philosophy and accounting and marketing and everything. So I kind of took a gap year where I worked for the whole year, 6 months in Bogota, then 6 months in LA. From those internships, I kind of loved the financial and negotiation aspects of that. I feel I was pretty good at it, and I feel that once you discover things you're good at, you're built to kind of enjoy them in the process. So I chose finance as my major when I joined BC. After first year summer interned at a regional bank in Colombia. Then I went through recruiting process in consulting in EY Parthenon. And then that's when essentially, I don't know why cables hit. Maybe I can go deeper in terms of that, but in December of last year, I don't know, like I started reading more about investment banking, and just thought it'd be a cool industry to join. My dad is in finance as well, and IB is huge in my campus. So that's when I started researching and everything about what it took, what you actually did on a daily basis, the exit ups, and that's when I found the program, joined, and I'm happy like right now to say I'm gonna join Citi in their domestic investment banking group in New York for 2025 summer. So a little bit long, but that's basically my story.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thanks for that detailed breakdown. So obviously City is an amazing offer. What did it feel like when you got the offer? Because this was like basically your very first offer and you accepted it, right? Um,
It was.
so
Uh
what was that feeling, I guess, when you got the call?
no, man, I started calling everybody. Started calling my parents, started calling my friends, and started I'm also working in a search fund that I two of the guys I work with, like they prepared me and helped me on everything, and I got him super close with them. So I called them and started screaming on the phone to them like I was absolutely stoked, to be honest. Like, because you work so hard for it that once you actually see the offer, it's so much satisfaction of actually showing that the process came through, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
stoked.
That's awesome, man. What did your parents say when you told them?
Now my mom, both of them just called me, and my sisters and all my family. Like, started I sent a screenshot on my family group chat, and everybody just, like, I don't know, like, started calling me. We did a group chat, congratulating me. I Not, to be honest, like, super happy because I shared like the whole process with them. I was like, they obviously, it's a big investment in terms of the program, and they were all in on me, actually, like, going through it, and in moments where I had a lot of doubts in terms of, I don't know, like, burnt out, not being able to go out with friends, and telling my friend and my parents about it. Like, they were so invested in me, and like, I don't know, like, they're just the most supporting people I have, that, yeah, it was amazing to share with them as well.
That's awesome, man. I always love asking people about this part because um, it just gives me a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment to one, obviously see how happy people are when they get the offer. Because I remember when I got my offer, it was amazing.
No,
It's
no,
one of those moments that you're never gonna forget for the rest of your life, right?
literally, literally.
And then also, like you said, there are so many people that love us and support us and have invested in us and just helped us along the way, pay for our education, invest in, programs like Wall Street Mastermind to help us like and people that want to see us succeed. And so like being able to share that joy with them is, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? That's one of the best feelings in the world. So that's amazing that you guys were able to do that. So I guess going back to the beginning then, because like I said, it sounds like you decided or you started doing research on banking around like December. And then you pretty much joined us in like late January. So that's like not that much time in between. But prior
Right.
to joining Wall Street Mastermind, aside from just like kind of researching what the job is about, had you started doing any prep on your own already, or not really? And it was really just like kind of learning what the job is, and Wall Street Mastermind was kind of like your first foray into actually preparing for recruiting.
So I feel that throughout December, I started reading a lot in terms of what a banker actually did. I read a couple books in terms of, like, banking stories. I read the Lazard group, the Last Tycoon, and the Blackstone group from Stephen Schwartz. I don't know, like, how do you pronounce the last name, but
Yeah.
the Blackstone CEO. And I read Too Big to Fail, those three books, because I really wanted to understand, like, what a day to day of a banker was before I actually went into a process. Because I had a lot of seniors that actually spoke to me, and he told me, like, bro, if you're gonna go through with this, like, you're in for a treat, because either you're all in or you might as well not, like, try. So I wanted to be 100% certain this was an industry I wanted to join. Um, and by nature of that, I think that thinking before making the decision, actually, like, bouncing up into the Wall Street Mastermind program, I feel there was a lot of aspects of the job that collided with my nature. I liked fast-paced things, and change, and the aspects of you being able to work on different types of industries and everything was super appealing to me. obviously I had started to take finance and accounting classes, and I really genuinely like the industry. um for me, it wasn't really the appeal of like, yeah, the pay is good, exit ops are good, but I feel like, I don't know, like I and I can attest to me going through the process. Like, I genuinely enjoyed going through your modules in terms of the technicals, because I don't know, I find this type of topics like super interesting. So me making that foundation of really understanding the industry and committing myself to actually wanting to join was the most, not only time consuming, but the most important. Once I did that, um I feel that I scheduled the call with you guys because I was like, why not? Like, I might as well just try it out. I'd seen some of your videos and client successes, and I was like, if this is too good to be true, like, okay, like, I don't lose anything, and the other way around, I don't lose anything. So jumped on the call, and I was just so captivated by the structure of that initial interview slash client acceptance,
Yeah.
that for me was just a perfect alignment of in terms of what I wanted to do. So that's when I jumped into it and just committed fully.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of clarify for people, I think, because I was going to ask, like, what made you want to join Wall Street? Because out of all the resources out there, there's so many things you could have done, right? There's so many different resources you could have used to help you prepare for investment banking. You could have used, I don't know, interview guides or financial modeling courses, or some people say, oh, I'm just gonna, talk to the upperclassmen at school who have already gone through the process and
Totally.
help me. Like, what made you want to join Wall Street Mastermind specifically? I think you mentioned one thing was like, hey, if it's you saw the client success, you saw all the testimonials and other people that gone through the program, who we interviewed about their process, kind of like what we're doing now, I suppose. And so that obviously helped. But you also mentioned, hey, if it's too good to be true, I don't lose anything. The other way around, I don't lose anything either. Like, explain to people kind of what you mean by that.
Yeah, and also, like, I started to read the guides into the Wall Street Oasis guides, and then the like big ass, I don't know how many questions it has, like 500 or 100 question guide,
400 questions,
and
yeah.
just going through that, Jesus Christ, man, like, I dedicated maybe 10 hours to that, and go like went through just the first section of that guide, understanding nothing. Like, it was like, if you think about it, like, when if you prepare through those guides, like, you're essentially trying to memorize everything whilst not really understanding it. For
No.
me, that was just so daunting and so freaking boring that I knew that if I was gonna go through this process, that I needed more help. Like, that way of learning is just not for me. um I needed more structure, and I feel that those guides didn't provide it. And then after I scheduled that first call, referring to your the other point you gave, like, the 101 I had with, I forget, I think it was, I forget the coach that I had the call with. um but he was just so, one, super nice, and two, like, he broke down every single thing that you guys helped with and supported. Everything was just facts based on the successes that you had. That for me was a no-brainer. And then to back it up, like, in terms of me referring to the, um I lose nothing and I win nothing, like, in terms of the both sides, like, the money back guarantee for me was like also kind of a lean back in terms of, okay, I'm gonna give it my all, like, do everything I humanly and possibly can in my will to get that freaking offer. But if that doesn't happen, like, at least I have some sort of comfort that, I don't know, like, I did it and didn't work out. Okay, still I have that backing up. So, I don't know. It was that, and also, like, I feel that psychologically, when you have a program that offers you that 100% money guarantees, because they're not full of shit. Like, they clearly know what they're doing, and then when you bundle it with the 90% plus success rate, like, that's just a no-brainer for me. So yeah,
No, sure.
I'd say that.
I think you bring up a really good point there, which is, well, you brought up multiple good points, but I think one, a lot of people do just use those guides and they have similar experiences as you, which is you just memorizing a bunch of stuff but without really understanding it, and it's not really effective.
Yeah,
So a lot of people do that before they come to our program, right? Uh, and then like coming to our program, I think, yeah, the money back guarantee you're talking about is like, we really vet every single person that we let into this program. And like for the students that we're really confident about, like we'll offer you money back guarantee where, we look at your profile, look at your school, look at your grades, look at your your resume, look at everything. And not to say that like obviously like, it's not like you go to Harvard or Wharton and have a 4.0 GPA and you already check all the boxes. Like that's not the case, right? But based on our experience, we've worked with over 1,300 students at this point. We know with pretty high degree of confidence like what type of students we can help get into banking, assuming you come in and do all the work that's required,
yeah,
right? So I think
100%.
that's the other point that you made, which is like, hey, even though you have this money back guarantee, like your mindset coming in was, I'm going to give it my all, I'm going to do everything I can to make this happen, but assuming I do that, like I'm pretty confident I'm going to get this job, but even if I don't, I'm protected by this guarantee, and so I don't really lose anything, right? And so that's like us.
Exactly.
That's us putting our money where our mouth is, was saying like, hey, if we vetted you and we feel confident that as long as you do your work, as long as you do what we ask you to do, we feel confident that you're going to get this job. And if you don't, then that's not your fault. That's our fault, right? That's basically what that's saying.
Yeah,
And so I think that's like, our way of making this, like you said, a no-brainer for people, right? It's like best case scenario, you get a job that pays you, 150 to 200K right out of college, and, a couple $1 million, like $2 million, two to $2.5 million over the first 7 years of your career. That's like the upside, right? The downside is, okay, you get a refund and you didn't lose anything, right? So
yeah.
uh, I guess was it challenging to, or at all to, obviously you mentioned before your parents were super supportive of you, but was it challenging to have to convince your parents about letting you join this program? Because a lot of people, their parents, I don't know what your parents do, but you say your dad's in finance, but a lot of people, like, their parents don't work in finance, they don't know what investment making is, they don't understand like why their kids even need help with something like this when it comes to like recruiting or getting a job. Like, how was that conversation with the parents? Like, was that easy or was it difficult, or how did it go for you?
For me, it was a matter. It wasn't that hard because it's not the first time that I kind of purchased a program of the style. I did that like back in high school. I mentioned I did an e-commerce store and I did that and it worked. So for me, like it was another way of saying like, hey, I did that previously. It worked. Trust me again on this. I know it's like a big decision and a big step, but um like, and they also know me like in terms of if I'm gonna invest in something like this, like they kind of know that I'm gonna do my all to make sure that I get the most out of it. So I feel that by nature of the relationship that we have, like of course I had to sit down and we had like a couple hour long chats and everything and me explaining it. And also like you guys do a great job of actually tailoring the explanation of the actual program delivery for parents in terms of the video that you guys have and the PDF presentation in terms of actually showcasing in one place all the results and all the banks that people had placements at. So that was also like super helpful in terms of me saying, hey, it's not only the program that works, but I'm also like super committed to it. And then the third point was like, um, I'm also like paying for the program myself. And so I told them like, hey, of course I don't have the money like right now in at that time, but I told them like hey, I I negotiated with them the deal in terms of because I bought the like the money back guarantee. So I told them like, hey, let's do something like you guys pay for the program right now with the money back guarantee. I go through the program. If I get in, I pay for the program, so there's no like downside for you. If I don't, I still gave him at all, but we have the money back guarantee, so you still have no downside uh to your guys. So it's essentially up to me.
Hmm.
And then like by way of reasoning, like I feel the signing bonus just simply covers for 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 the whole expenses. So
Yeah.
that was the way I negotiated. If that's helpful to somebody else, um that's basically a way that I did it. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. I think my biggest takeaway there is there has to be a level of trust between you and your parents, right? Because I feel like every parent-child relationship is different. A lot of that goes back to
Yeah.
how you kind of carried yourself growing up, right? Like it sounds like growing up, you've made other investments in yourself, and you've demonstrated that when you make these types of investments in yourself, you don't let it go to waste. And you've demonstrated that you're the type of person that has a
Yeah.
good work ethic and you're going to put in the work. And sounds like your parents also trust your judgment. Because if you don't have a track record of being a hard worker or having a good head on your shoulder or making good decisions, then when you bring something to your parents, they're probably gonna like be more skeptical or question like, hey, like my son's just being an idiot or whatever. He's like being dumb. Like I'm not gonna listen to him, right? Versus like if you
Yeah.
have a good track record and your parents trust you, then they're gonna be more open minded about what you're bringing to them, right? And of course, at the end of the day, I truly believe as a dad myself, I have two kids. Like all parents want what's best for their kids. That is like
Yeah.
universal, right? Like they want to see their kids succeed. And so it's just about educating them and helping them understand why this is something that's going to help you be successful, right? Uh,
Totally.
so I guess you came into the program, right? And like I said, that was like late January of sophomore year. At that point, I think recruiting had already started, right? And a lot of the applications
Yeah.
had already just like recently come out for summer 2025. At the same time, you were really just kind of starting to go through your preparation process, like for at least like in a serious manner for the first time. So, um, walk us through kind of like from that point forward, like what has the last 3+ months been like? Like I imagine you had to work with a lot of urgency. You maybe were feeling a little bit behind the eight ball in terms of when you got started, but like,
Totally.
what were like some of the things that you worked on inside of the program that you felt like made the biggest difference for you or had the biggest impact on kind of your outcome?
Yeah, so I think that once I understood the structure of the program, I was quick to actually get into it because I understood that like recruiting was starting and everything. So one, I was quick on that. And then I think that once I joined it, I noticed that the structure of it all just builds upon each other, that you're able to just, if you put in the time and you follow the structure, like you're gonna go through with it accordingly and pretty quick, and you're gonna save time. So I built my profile in terms of what I wanted to do, why I wanted to do it, and just committed to myself. The secret sauce, I think, was super helpful to kind of gain that initial momentum, which I think is hard. um and then like I think once you nail down the behavioral competency and the resume, because resume is everything, man, and the structure of the program in terms of you guys reviewing it, I saw my hit rate in terms of email outreach success drastically increase. So I was able to have a solid resume, knowing that once I sent that, people were actually gonna throw eyeballs at it. So gain some sense of confidence in terms of that, had more track in terms of the networking. Um, and then it's just volume, to be honest. It's just taking the time for it. I dedicated 4, even 6 hours some days and weekends and everything because I felt I was late. I think you guys referenced Alex Morgi, amazing in that, in terms of inspiration of how much time you it's necessary to not only meet the rate of progress of competition per se, but if you're behind, the extra work you need to put to actually not only catch up but like gain a sense of advantage to it. So it was just volume and then making sure I did everything with intent. The resume, the cover letter, the outreach email scripts, And I feel that once you put in the time, and you yourself know that you're doing everything you can to actually gain that offer, once you hop in calls with bankers and once you go through the actual interviews, you gain a sense of, like, I don't know, like confidence in yourself and in a sense of trust in the process, knowing that you did everything, you've done everything, you're perhaps like a good candidate for the job, you have a good work ethic, you have a good understanding of what the job entails, that once you put in that inputs, like, for me at least, it kind of helped foment those other interactions in the latter stage. And then like BC, the school I go to, it's not a target school per se. So what I did is, instead of actually targeting 10 plus banks, I focused on really 3 to 4 main ones that actually actively recruit in campus, and then focused my full intent and energy on that. So I'd
Hmm.
say those 4 or 5 things were the ones that mostly helped me.
That's awesome, man. So I think to your point, the resume is absolutely critical, right? Like I don't think it can be overstated how important that document
Yeah,
is because and most
it's
people
insane.
unfortunately do a poor job at it, not because they don't try. I think most people try to put effort into their resume, but it's not something that they teach in school in terms of like all the
Totally.
practices. And a lot of times people's formatting on their resume is just so poor, right? And most
Yeah,
people when they go to a program and they look at the before and the after of like what their
night
resume
and day.
as night and day, it's not recognizable. And to your point, once you made that improvement, the conversion rate on everything you do after that is going to go up significantly, right? Your
Yeah,
response to your email is going to go up. Your interview invitations for every application you submit is going to go up, and like so that's just foundational, right? And then I think the other point that you made that's really good is like I think confidence kind of builds on itself, right? Like, but confidence comes from preparation. Like when you're
yeah,
doing all the work and you know you're taking all the right steps, um, then naturally you're gonna have confidence because you've done everything you could possibly do, right? Versus
literally.
if you aren't preparing the right way or you don't know how to approach the preparation process, then in the back of your mind, you're gonna have doubt. You're gonna have uncertainty because you know that there's probably something missing that you should be doing that you're not doing yet. You just don't know what it is, right? And I think that's like the big challenge for like people that try to DIY or whatever. It's like nobody has taught you how to recruit for investment banking. And by definition, like most people that are going through investment banking recruiting are going through it for the first time. So you're literally just like trying to
Yeah,
trial and error as you go. It's almost like if you have Google Maps, like if you're trying to get from point A to point B, like most of us today, if we've never been there, we've never taken this path before, like we will pull up our Google map on our phone and use navigation to tell us how to get there and like turn here, turn there, do this now, do this next, whatever, whatever. You wouldn't just say, oh yeah, I've never been there before, but I'm just not going to use a map and I'm just going to try to figure it out. I'll just like, take a bunch of turns, see where I end up.
totally.
If it's the wrong turn, then maybe I'll come back and, redo it. Like it's just not efficient. And more likely than not, you will not end up getting to the final destination that you're trying to get to. Right. Or maybe you can get there with enough time if there's no time constraint. But we all know that with investment banking recruiting, you're under significant time pressure to get everything done as
Yeah,
quickly as possible because recruiting happens so quickly. And if you miss the boat, like it's gone. Right. Um, so I think the other thing I wanted to ask you about too is you were because you mentioned you're going to the New York office for Citi for their domestic investment banking group. I think what people probably didn't catch here is that um, as part of your recruiting process, you were also recruiting for a lot of LATAM groups, right? Like the Latin America
yeah,
groups, because obviously you grew up in Colombia and you speak the language, and so that makes you, eligible for those positions as well. Um, like I know then, like we assigned you like a coach Tati for you to kind of do some mocks for those positions. Um,
he's great.
because also a lot of those interviews aren't in English, they're actually in Spanish. And so you had to kind of practice in Spanish. And so we wanted to make sure we had a coach that could do that with you. And so like talk about that preparation process a little bit, talk about like what the mock interviews were like and kind of what you got out of that experience.
Yeah, so I was like super focused on Latam because I felt that I had like a competitive edge in terms of me recruiting for those specific groups compared to other people. Like I'm from Colombia, but I'm also American, so I don't require a visa, but I speak both languages. So I think like in this process is just you trying to find edge wherever you can.
Mm.
That for me made a lot of sense. So I recruited heavily for City Latam and then Goldman Latam, and then I tried for Bofa Latam. I was gonna have um, interviews for all of those, but um, Bofa at the end, like I kind of screwed up initial phone call, and then RPC also not their Latam group, but domestic also screwed up the phone call. And then I learned from that process, and that's when I think City has like a less a less like a more formal process in terms of the recruiting, that the first round per se is not a phone screen, but it's an actual invitation. So by nature of that, I kind of seeked out for help. That's when I messaged to you and I told you like, hey, I'm gonna have our first round for City. Like, is there any mock I can do? Because I'd seen a couple hot seats, but they were all in English. So that's when you connected me with Tati, and she's so nice. Like she went through the process recently for the Bofa Latam M&A group. So she literally knew inside out the whole process. What questions I was most likely going to be asked. She told me great things. If I never went through with the process, but have I had, I know, like I just knew I was gonna be super prepared because she broke down basically Latam has a lot of differences in terms of how you value for Brazil and Colombia and Peru, and I had no idea. Like I feel the interview process is a little bit more complex and dynamic than the domestic ones in terms of you have to have all these geographic and political considerations in answers, and I had no idea about this. It was just Tati that she kind of broke it down for me country by country, which was super helpful in terms of building up that confidence, and then just practicing the technicals in Spanish as well was game changing. So in terms of the process, I was gonna go through with the City Latam recruiting, but that's when out of the bloom, as per your guys' advice, is like never stop recruiting, continue those email outbounds, continue applying, continue speaking to people. And by nature of that, I got a first round with City Domestic, went amazingly well, got a super day like 2 days after, um, and like prepared again with data mock, um, kind of ran through the whole process, and that's when I secured the offer. And talking to some of the guys in the program, and with Tati and everything, like that's when they told me like, hey, I think domestic for your profile is gonna be better than Latam, because I feel because I don't know, like other nuances in terms of exit ops and the sort, but yeah, that was like the timeline for me.
That's awesome, man. And I think, yeah, to your point earlier, a lot of times, like depending on the group you're interviewing for, the interviews can be very different, right? Where there could be something specific about that particular group and how they do things. So to your
Yeah, it's
in the
crazy.
Latin Am example, it's they do the valuations differently for different countries due to different geopolitical considerations, and that's just not something that um any banker who has not gone through Latin interviews would know, right? And so that's
Yeah,
also like
never.
when we do mock interviews, we try our best to, match you up with coaches that actually not just like any banker, because yeah, I can go on the street and find any random banker to do a mock interview with you, but matching up with bankers that actually have relevant experience in that space. right? And it's not just Latin group, like oil and gas is very different from financial institutions, which is very different from real estate, which is very different from technology, right? And so
Yeah.
like depending on what office you're interviewing for, what group you're interviewing for, like the preparation has to be different and it has to be personalized. And that's why also like, if you're just reading like the 400 questions guide or the Wall Street Oasis interview guide and you're trying to study everything on your own, like those guides are more one size fits all, and it's not going to be personalized to the degree that you need it to be for your situation all the time, right? And that can end up making
100%.
a huge difference, right? But I definitely agree. Like, I think you ending up on the domestic IB team, I think that's arguably even a better outcome, I would say, just like to your point, like in terms of
Yeah.
exit ops and the flexibility that you would have afterwards versus like coming out of LATAM, you might, kind of go down like the more LATAM path for the rest of your career, which is not a bad thing, but it's just like it's more narrow. Whereas this, I
Yeah.
think, giving your background, and your profile, and your upbringing, like if you ever want to move back to focus on LATAM, I'm sure you will still be able to do that down the road. But also, that's not like the
Yeah, that was
have to do, right?
100%.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome
that was the rationale. But yeah, 100%.
for sure. So one last question for you, which is I always like to end on this, but you know, do you have something that you can pass down to other people, like now that you're on the other side, maybe like your best piece of advice uh, for people who are still recruiting or about to start recruiting? Could be something that you learned, figured out on your own along the way, or maybe something that one of the coaches or another banker taught you that really ended up being a big difference maker for you. Is there anything like that that you can kind of share with other people just to kind of help them out as well?
I feel it was in, and I by the whole nature, like I feel the program kind of guides you perfectly in terms of what you need to do and what you should prioritize first rather than later. Because as you mentioned, like everything builds upon the other, in terms of like the structure and what you should take into account going into the interviews. What I'd say is just like trying to find the levers where you get the most bang for buck. You mentioned this is a huge time rush and it makes a lot of sense. So for me, it was like if you look about it, like first impressions in this industry matter a lot. So really pinpointing and doing everything you can to make sure your resume is absolutely perfect, neat. If you have to revise it 3 4 times, do it. You have to tweak 1 to 2 words on those, like do it is the most important thing in the whole process, and I can't emphasize it enough. So that for me was number one, like resume. Two is just nail down the tell me about yourself. Like I gave a terrible example on this call because I was too long, um but like if you're able to nail that tell me about yourself and actually do a perfect delivery of 1 minute, keep it short and simple, especially for calls. Every single interaction you're gonna have, like literally every networking call, every interview round you have, like that's your first impression. So if you have an amazing first impression, not only through your resume but as an individual, where the people are able to take those experiences from your resume and actually hear them from you in a good concise way that actually prove that um, you have done the work and you're a good candidate. I think you set yourself up for success in that. And then third one is just like putting the time, go through the process. Kind of for me, super helpful was just time blocking my calendar for moments of day where I just dedicate 100% to the step of the program I was on. So I'd say those three things for me were the biggest in terms of efficiency.
That's awesome, man. I think finding those leverage points to your point is like really crucial, right? But because you're gonna work hard regardless, but it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart, right? And so people that make a good first impression can work less hard and get to the same outcome, or better yet, you can work just as hard as you would have and get a much better outcome. Because first impression is everything, man. Like the way the human brain
Yeah.
works, within the first, probably 5 to 10 seconds of you meeting someone, you're already kind of like creating whatever biases you have about that person, deciding if you like them or not. This is what every single one of us is doing when we meet someone new. And then like once your brain has kind of decided like, yes, I like this person, no, I don't like this person, then we're just looking for other confirmation biases to confirm that our first impression is correct. Like in my
Yeah.
experience, very rarely do people ever change their opinion about someone after they've already established the first
So
impression.
hard.
Right. And so in an interview, to your point, if your first answer is not good, which is almost always going to be tell me about yourself, then it's almost impossible to overcome that and dig out of that hole. And every answer you give after that, the interviewer is looking for reasons to disqualify you because they don't like you.
Yeah.
And they're trying to ding you. And now if you like make a little mistake on a technical question, they're like, oh yeah, he doesn't know his stuff. Like, DQ, right? Or they might even like subconsciously, they're not doing this on purpose, but just like start asking you harder questions to try to trip you up, right? Because and sometimes like I'll put it this way: we've seen students that um completely crush their technical interviews, aced every single question, and they walk out of the interview feeling really good about themselves, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I nailed that." Like, and then they don't get the offer. And then
Yeah.
we've also seen students that have messed up on a couple of technical questions during the interview, like one or two here and there, nothing crazy, and they're feeling kind of worried, and then they get the offer. And then you're like, well, what's the difference? Well, the person that crushed the technical interview and didn't get the offer, like their story wasn't good. Their behavioral answers weren't good. They didn't make a good first impression. And in those instances, if your interviewer doesn't like you, even if you nail every single technical question, they can
Yeah.
make up other excuses to disqualify. He's like, oh, this guy's super cocky. He's like a know-it-all.
Yeah.
He's not a cultural fit, whatever that means, right? Versus if your answer was really good, you're telling me about yourself was really good, your story was good, they're like, wow, this guy's amazing. And then you mess up on a technical question after that, they're like, well, it's not a big deal. That question was like really hard. I didn't expect them to get it anyway. Like that's like how we rationalize whatever we want to believe in our head, right? And that's what your
100%.
interviewers are doing too. Like, trust me, your interviewers have a lot of biases because we're human beings and we all have that, right? Same thing doing networking conversations. They like you if you have strong rapport in the beginning and you hit it off. Like the rest of the conversation just flows so much more easily, right? It's so much easier. And so that first impression point is like really, really, it's a really, really great point. And so I want to just like emphasize that for everyone, right? And I think like your point about time management too. Like honestly, I think half the battle in recruiting is time management, right? Because
Yeah.
investment banking recruiting in and of itself is not rocket science. Like it's not
It's not.
like I was talking about, it was like, you don't have to be a genius to break into investment banking. You're not trying to become like, it's not, I don't know, you're not trying to become like, this is not like, oh, I have to be a PhD level math person or whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
if I gave you
100%.
enough time, if I said, hey, there's no time limit, you have all the time in the world to figure out how to break into investment banking. Like, I think most, if not everybody, can probably figure it out eventually. But the problem is the recruiting timeline is so condensed. The deadline, like once they start recruiting halfway through sophomore year, I mean, like before you even finish sophomore year, like right now it's May. Like a lot of the elite boutiques and Bulge bracket offers are already done, right? Like you've already, if you want to get in a top 20 bank, like it's getting pretty close to the later stages of that already, and it's only been a few months. And so the challenge is like you're a full-time student, you're trying to keep your grades up, you're trying to do internships to beef up your resume, you're trying to network with a bunch of bankers, having all these calls, sending all these emails, you're trying to prep for interviews at the same time, behavioral interviews, polish all your stories, learn all the technicals, like, and you still want to have some sort of social life and friends and for some people girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, right? And so it's just like there's a lot of things you have to juggle. So the challenge for most people is actually just like who can juggle all these things the best. Like you all have 24
Yeah.
hours a day. Who can get that
100%.
done with the same 24 hours that you have. And the people that can get the most done in those 24 hours are going to have the best GPA, are going to be the most prepped, are going to have the most networking calls, are going to have the best resumes, right? And so that's why I was like, it's just a time management thing. And that's why, I think for those of you that are still listening to this, if you find yourself in a similar situation, like if you're going through recruiting now, or you're about to go through recruiting, and you don't just, and you know you're a hard worker, but you know that hard work is alone is probably not enough. Because I can tell you right now, a lot of people that try to break into banking and don't get in, it's not for a lack of effort. It's not because they're not trying hard. They try really, really hard and it still doesn't work out, right? Because it's just that competitive. So like if you don't just want to work hard, but you want to work smart, you want to understand what all the leverage points are. You want to be as efficient with your time as possible. You want to skip all the trial and error and not make silly mistakes along the way that you don't have to make. And just like have a proven game plan that you can follow that's also personalized for your situation. Then I want to encourage you guys to reach out to our team, right? Like you can book a call. You can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The streets abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And what we'll do is we'll hop on with you. We'll have that call that Juan had as well when he first met with us. We'll learn more about your situation. We'll figure out like, hey, what are your goals? What firms do you want to go to? What are your challenges right now? What do you feel like you need help with? Because it's different for everybody, right? Like different people have different strengths and weaknesses and are struggling with different things, have different obstacles that they have to overcome. But based on what you tell us about your situation, we'll learn more about that. And then, like Juan said, like our team will walk through like a step-by-step game plan with you on how we will overcome each of those challenges together, right? And based on that, like you have two options. You can either, have us help you implement that game plan and help you with the execution, in which case I would be happy to do that. Or if you say, like, if you want to take that and just say, hey, I'm going to go and run with it on my own and try to do this, that's totally fine too. That's completely up to you. Like either way, we'll at least try to help you map out that game plan, which is the first step that you have to do. It just provides as much value as possible. And then we can kind of take it from there. Right. So that's our little offer to you guys. But with that said, Juan, I want to congratulate you again on an amazing offer. And obviously, you're a super hard worker and you put in, so much time into this effort. And it's always great to see, our students get the payoff and the reward for their hard work. And I'm excited to see what you do at City this, next summer 2025 and beyond, really, even for full time. And I'm sure you'll have a long and successful career ahead of you in finance. So congratulations again, and just thank you for taking the time to come on here and share all this with us. I think it's been super helpful. I learned a lot, and I know our audience will learn a lot too. So,
No, honestly, thank you, Sam. Everything has been absolutely phenomenal. Anybody hearing this, if you think this is an industry that you want to break into, like hop on a call. You absolutely lose anything, like you lose nothing, and the team is absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, I can't thank you enough, Sam.
hey, and thank you for letting us play a small part in this on your journey. Like, you had to obviously do most of the work, but we're honored to have been able to just give you some guidance along the way and steer you in the right direction. So, with that said, guys, we are gonna wrap it up here. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. And until next time, all right. Cheers.